Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the game. Nope, Matt.
Nope.
The mistakes within them. The mistakes within them. Matt, I think this has been something that I've been battling internally. You know, my thoughts are the anime I watch on the daily basis, but Matt. Every week, I prepare for a new episode of The Mistake Zone and think, did play a lot of games this week, but the anime, a bit on the short side of things. The anime is getting the short end of the stick. And Matt, this week's no different.
Classic.
Hate to say it, Matt, but as I was trying to say, this is The Mistake Zone, your weekly dose of our lives and the mistakes within them, which are game-centric for the most part this week. My name is Jaren Wade. Joining me, as always, one of my best friends in the whole wide world, Matt Alba. Hey, Matt.
Yo.
How are you doing?
Yo, Jaren, I am not doing good right now.
That isn't great. That is not great. And I have to ask, Matt, what's up?
Jaren.
How you doing, bud?
Jaren, the weather here has been becoming a little bit more mild, so I've been having my windows open. Right, Jaren?
Yes.
And as a part of that, I left my window open while I was asleep. And Jaren, that was a bad idea. Jaren, when the weather becomes a bit more mild, you know, us people like to enjoy that mild weather. But Jaren, you know what else likes to enjoy that mild weather? Jaren, it's bugs.
Matt, do you, as we have established in Saturday Morning Arcade Mistake Zone lore, you, Julian, and Rakush are all roommates, and that's why you were able to share a Nintendo Switch Online family plan. And Matt, do you have to add more members to that family plan because your room now houses 1 million bugs?
Oh God, I hope not, Jaren. It's not the 1 million bugs that I'm worried about, Jaren. Jaren, it's the one bug that decided to mess with me.
Okay.
Because Jaren, I'm pretty sure that 2 days ago, while I was asleep, a bug came into my room and bit my eyebrow. And Jaren, my eyebrow is so swollen right now.
That shouldn't. I'm not a doctor. As someone who dislocated their knee, which ended up tearing the cartilage in my knee, playing a video game, and did not go to the emergency room for maybe 5 hours, but instead just sat dicking around on the PC. I'm not a medical expert, but hear me out here, Matt. But if I was bitten on my eyebrow, I think, and then it started swelling up, I think I would go get that looked at, you know, within a dozen hours or so.
Have
you gotten this looked at?
Of course not, Jaren. I've been having a busy weekend, Jaren. I
understand, but
Jaren, I don't have time to go to the hospital and look at this possible medical emergency.
Well, I trust your judgment, Matt. I don't actually trust your judgment, but you know, hopefully everything works out. Can you see out of your swollen eye?
No, yeah. I can see. It's not on the eye directly. It's like on the brow, so it's just like swollen a bit. But
okay.
But that part's fine. But Jaren, the reason that I haven't been able to go to the hospital, Jaren, is that I've been busy taking apart some furniture and making this room, Jaren, super dusty. I am coughing a lot. This episode is gonna really suck for me to edit.
Matt, This sounds like a bad weekend for you, Matt.
I don't know. It's pretty good, Jaren. I bought some new furniture. I bought myself a new desk. Bought myself a new shelf that's going to be coming in tomorrow that I can assemble. And I am genuinely concerned right now about the audio for my recording because, Jaren, I got rid of a bunch of desks. I've gotten temporarily rid of a bunch of stuff that's hanging on my wall. And as I'm talking in this room right now, Jaren, it sounds super echoey to me, and I'm really concerned that it's gonna mess with my audio. So I think I'm gonna actually also buy some of those those like padding squares that people put into like recording studios. I've always wanted to buy some of those, and now that my desk is directly facing a wall, I think it might be worth investing in that.
I've always been thinking of partaking in the purchase of Matt. I don't know why I said partaking in the purchase of. It's one of those episodes this week, but I've always thought about also buying some foam squares to put around this room just because I don't know, maybe I'm self conscious, but when I listen back to our episodes, because I'm an egotistical maniac, I think, maybe I am feeling or sounding a bit echoey in my office right now. But Matt, my worry is if I put up a bunch of foam squares in this office, where do all my B2 tapestries go?
Oh no.
And
Jaren, actually, you know what? If you get enough B2 tapestries, you can put the foam behind them because Jaren, they're tapestries anyway. They're already going to be doing some noise like isolation. I don't know what the word here would be. Muffling for you.
Oh, that's actually a good
Echo
point.
muffling.
Maybe that will be something I look into.
Jared, these are just business expenses now. These B2 tapestries are just business expenses.
Man, Matt, I cannot argue with that. But Matt, I feel like we have allocated the proper amount of time to talking about our, I guess, recording setups here in the mistake zone. And Matt, I think we should get into our first mistake of the week.
Okay.
Which is a continuation of a mistake that you shared last week. But I finally got my chance to dive into it as well. Matt, this was the second weekend of the Diablo 4 open beta. This time really open to, I guess, anyone, since previously it was only accessible if you have pre-ordered the game. And Matt, as you said last week, this is a open beta for Diablo 4 with all 5 classes. Now, Druid and Necromancer were available. Last week it was only Barbarian, I believe it's the Rogue or Thief, and the Sorcerer class. And now that it's open, I got my hands on it as well. I picked a sweet Necromancer because Matt, Necromancer or necromancing adjacent classes are my jam when it comes to these isometric ARPGs. But as the resident Diablo, expert, Matt, how was your time with open beta weekend 2? And did you get your hands on the Necromancer and the Druid?
My time with the open beta or the second open beta was pretty okay. It is honestly, Jaren, as chunky as this weekend was, it was less chunky than I was expecting it to be. Jaren, I think that maybe the Necro was putting so many summons into the game that maybe just made everything a bit more unstable. I don't know about you, Jaren, but like when I was playing Necro, I noticed that it was really, really chunky. I don't know if that's just my computer showing its age or if maybe the servers for Diablo 4 just can't handle all the skeleton summons that all the necromancers are putting out. But
I really noticed some really chunky moments during my gameplay, and I kind of do realize that this is a open beta. I think a lot of the time there is going to be a lot of stress testing for the game itself, plus the fact, as you said, Matt, with the Necromancer, I know by the end of my time with the open beta, I was geared up to the point where I could have 11 skeletons summoned at once. And I'm pretty sure that, it can go a lot higher depending on how you geared your character out. But yeah, I noticed what's the main hub city? I forget. It's the city you get to after Rite of Passage, which is the final prologue mission. But I noticed that the main hub city chugged like crazy all throughout the weekend.
Yeah. Whenever I went to Kyovashad, it was really, really chunky for me. But I think that was like that last weekend as well. I found that place is usually or was always the chunkiest place for me, both in this beta and the previous beta.
And other than that, I had a few instances. I guess we'll get the poo-pooing out of the way. I did have a few instances of rubber banding within some of the dungeons and in some of the open field areas when I was trying to get to the next, I guess, quest area that I had to go through. Specifically, for the most part, I was playing either with one other person or a full squad of 4 throughout the whole weekend. So I'm not sure if that also contributed to maybe the performance. But other than that, I was actually pleasantly surprised at how the game ran once all those hiccups were, you know, disregarding all those hiccups. I thought the game did run notably well, but way better than I was expecting, given how, this is a open beta and you would expect that their servers would be pushed to the limit here. I think the only other bummer I ran into was, I think, towards the bottom right area of the beta map, or whatever the map you had access to was, or portion of the map. I would do, the randomly spawning world events, which are, oh, hey, maybe stand on this area for a few seconds to sacrifice some of your blood, or, clear all these enemies. And then it would get to the point where I would do the mastery portion of the quest. And then before the quest ends, it's, hey, finish off all remaining enemies. I think that's, the common flow of these world events that you run into, where you do the task and then you have, hey, just finish off all the enemies. And every time I got to the finish all the enemies portion, no enemies would spawn, or we couldn't find them within quest radius, and we would just not finish the mission. And that happened like 3 times in the bottom right hand area, and that really took me out of it. But other than that, I had a lot of fun, and I think the beta achieved its marketing duties, and I am really heavily considering purchasing the game when it does come out in June. Gameplay was solid. As I said, I love the necromancer, and I'm not sure if you played a lot of necromancer during the beta, Matt, but it took me a while to find, a build skill wise that I was really into. I kind of settled by the end of the beta weekend on corpse explosion. And Matt,
same.
Just seeing all those explosions one after the other, and then you summoning more corpses to explode, felt good, Matt.
So good.
Felt real good. And I think it is just, some of the friends I was playing with did kind of remark that, oh, you have a lot of skeletons up right now. It's kind of hard to see where I'm attacking. And I think I don't know. I do agree that comes with the territory with the necromancer, but I did have some issues of, oh, where are the corpses that I need to click so they can explode, or where's the enemy that I have to click so I could fight, and then click the corpses to explode near them. But I think there was also an accessibility option that they showed you in the start of the game, which lets you, do a lot more enemy highlighting. And I think when I do, or if I do end up purchasing the game in June, I think that's definitely something I do want to tune with, just because, I think with all those skeletons that you summon, visibility is a bit difficult. Plus, I feel like, Matt, I don't know about you, but I'm really bad when it comes to, hey, you're starting the game, let's do a brightness slider. Make sure the logo itself is just barely visible. And every time I do that, Matt, the game's way too dark. So, of course, this is Diablo, and that comes with the territory. But again, I think a lot of my time with the beta was positive, but it also made me think, okay, once I actually get my hands on this for real, I will need to kind of tune it to my liking, just so that it is easier to see. But other than that, Matt, that was kind of my time with Diablo 4. How was your time? Well, I guess I asked you that already. Did you play the Necromancer, and did you play the Druid this weekend?
Yeah, I really liked the Necromancer. I think the same as you. I ended up on a Corpse Explosion build, and Jaren, Corpse Explosion is still so good. There's one thing from Diablo 3 that I really miss, Jaren, which is the legendary where it make the corpse explosion corpse jump into the air first and then home in on an enemy before it explodes. And
that would be really good, Matt.
Man, I hope that one comes back. I hope
that comes back. Yeah.
But Jaren, I was very, very disappointed by the Druid.
Yeah, I actually heard that a lot from my friends that played the Druid this weekend, but again, Matt, as the resident Diablo player here, why didn't the druid class tickle your fancy this time around?
I think that it's just that the druid itself had very bad, like, it wasn't fun to play. I found that the druid was very weak, both in terms of survivability and damage
Yes.
output, which is, I think you can be bad at one and good at the other, like, then that's like totally fine. But being bad at both is really, really just makes it an awful class to play. I think that it really, really does seem to require legendaries to make it work. Because I know
Right.
that I went through the trouble of leveling the druid, and it was miserable, Jaren. I couldn't really find a good build to play up until I got to like 20ish. And by then
Hmm.
I had just been feeding in obols to it so that I could get legendaries for it and get some legendaries that worked really well for it. And I don't know, like it's very disappointing to see a class so dependent on legendaries like that. Like I think the barbarian is dependent on items, but it's not dependent on its legendary items, if
Right,
that
right,
makes
right.
sense. But like the druid is very, very weak. Like it's Jaren, I like pet builds, like just having summons. I think like that's also why like necromancer was like a fun time for me. But the summons on the druid are all very weak. You have to spec points into these summons, and all of them are weaker than a skeleton from the necromancer, which is like super, super disappointing.
Right.
And I don't
That
know.
makes me feel bad, Matt.
Yeah, yeah. I ended up just playing a caster druid. Once I got the legendary that lets your tornado home in on enemies instead of just going around randomly, it felt a lot better to play because you could actually kill things with the spirit you're spending.
Yeah.
But I really hope that the druid is changed by the time retail comes out.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I think it'd be really annoying to level the druid in the state that it's currently in.
Yeah. I know, as I said, two of the friends that I played with throughout the weekend, two of them rolled Druid, and both of them came out of the beta saying, yeah, I think if I do get the game come June, I might just do, a rogue or a thief, or I might do a
Mm-hmm.
sorcerer or a barbarian, where they had similar complaints to you, Matt, where the damage output doesn't really seem that great. The survivability was really awful. And I remember we did the fight where I guess small spoilers. It was during the story, I believe the last story mission you can do in the beta where you have to find Lilith, and before you or the end of that quest you have to fight like Lilith's summon or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I remember that fight, both our druid friends just kept dying just because the survivability wasn't there. They kept running out of um, healing potions, and
Mm-hmm.
none were like refreshes weren't like um, being summoned. And a lot of the times it was, oh, gotta run over and revive them so they're fully stacked. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that was like the disappointing part from them was they couldn't really make a build work, especially when you're leveling up to 20, 25,
Mm-hmm.
where the skills weren't that, appealing. And a lot of the time we were just looking through them trying to theory craft ourselves of, oh, what would help sustain us longer in these fights. And on the flip side, at least with myself playing as the necromancer, there were a few skills that would let you escape and then heal up like a tiny bit, not a lot, but it is still
Mm-hmm.
something. And just seeing my friends play the druid, like they didn't have those options. And yeah, it looked really awkward to play. And I am curious if there is going to be some quality of life things done. Then again, I'm just not a hardcore Diablo player or a druid player, so maybe there's something that I'm missing. But yeah, just based on my friends' reactions from a casual standpoint, it wasn't the greatest. But Matt,
Mm-hmm.
exploding corpses, that
Mm-hmm.
it took me a while to actually figure out how the corpse mechanic worked, because a lot of the times I was clicking corpse explosion on my summoned skeletons and thinking, oh,
Oh,
nothing's
yeah.
actually happening. And then when it finally clicked on me, where I need to click the actual corpses. Duh, that's what the name of the move is called. It got like a lot more fun, and yeah, that was really my time. Another thing that really stood out to me from the game, Matt, was I know a few weeks ago I was looking through some old screenshots on my computer and I found all my old D3 screenshots. And I think having that as my baseline of how a Diablo game looks and just seeing how D4 looks now, I think Diablo 4 looks really pretty. I think the character creator, you know me, man, I spent a good chunk of time designing my necromancer just because, it looks really nice. Like, especially, again, what I'm used to back with D3, but I was really surprised at how the game looks itself and in motion when it didn't chug because of the server issues.
Jaren, I think it's wild that for the character creation, after you create them, you can change your tattoos, but you can't change your hairstyle.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's
I
wild.
know in the wardrobe you're able to do some character modifications, but I wasn't sure if you could do the hairstyle. Not that I was going to change my hairstyle anyway, but that's kind of weird too.
Yeah.
But Matt, now that the beta is all said and done, I'm looking at the Diablo 4 digital deluxe version and the ultimate version. Matt, I'm curious, do you think what's included in these versions warrants I'll just say it, the beefy price tag here in Canada, just because the digital deluxe, I believe, is $120 Canadian, and for $10 more, you can get the ultimate edition. Of course, you have some cosmetics for both, Diablo 4 and some other Blizzard games, including WoW and I believe D3, and I think Diablo Immortal as well. But there was also the digital deluxe version comes with the battle pass, and then the ultimate edition comes with, your first 20 levels, so like a fast track.
Yeah.
And I think just based on looking at the contents of these editions, Matt, how do you feel value-wise? What do you think of the value proposition? And has anything been said about what the battle pass will entail? Maybe it's because I haven't looked into Diablo Immortal, but I assume since that's the mobile game, it would have a battle pass equivalent. But I was also curious what your thoughts on Diablo 4 getting a battle pass as well.
From what I heard, the battle pass is going to contain mostly micro or cosmetic stuff. So I'm assuming it's just going to be transmogs that you can equip, or maybe
more wings, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I don't know if there's going to be wings, but I hope that there's like some interesting stuff in there, Jaren. I also heard that they're going to put in like some of the, how like the XP potions you can craft? I heard they're putting some of those inside the battle pass as well.
Okay.
I don't know much of what else is in there. That's basically like all I've heard about it. But Jaren, I honestly don't think that the Ultimate Edition is at all worth the price. I think that if you are... Okay, first off, I don't think the Wings of Creator emote is any good. I think if it was legitimate wings, maybe, Jaren. But for an emote that just makes you like kind of hover up and then you have wings fly out of your back for a bit and then you hover back down, I don't think it's worth it. Plus, Jaren, I think that if you're a person who is into Diablo enough to warrant you buying the Ultimate Edition, I don't think that you need the 20 tier skips.
Right.
I honestly think that like you would almost definitely play it anyway and get all the value out of the battle pass to begin with. But Jaren, that digital deluxe for $30 more than the standard edition, which has the like battle pass, a new mount, a mount armor, and Jaren, that 4 days of early access to Diablo 4. Jaren, I'm buying the digital deluxe edition. I'm gonna upgrade to the digital deluxe.
Okay.
I'm not like happy that I'm doing it, but Jaren, I'm updating to digital deluxe. That 4 days of early access to D4 is really, really appealing to me, especially since Diablo 4, like June 6th is a Tuesday.
Oh, right.
So having an early weekend for it is makes that way more appealing to me.
That makes sense. Especially, I think the value proposition is a bit more difficult for me, just because, as you said, it is like a $30 increase for the battle pass, which I assume is going to be $10, because that is, that's the standard price a battle pass will be. And then looking at the other cosmetics, like, I'm not playing Diablo Immortal, so that's a nope. I'm not playing WoW, that's a nope. Chances are I'm not downloading D3 just so I can use whatever I pre-ordered in it, so that's a nope too. So again, I think while the 4 days is appealing, I don't know, Matt, if that would justify the extra $30.
Yeah.
If you were to tell me the Ultimate Edition was, included the level skips for the digital deluxe price, and maybe if the digital deluxe was, I don't know, 10 to 15 more, maybe I could see it. But I think $30 for early access is that's just where I stand, where I personally don't think it's worth it. But if, as you do bring up a good point of, you do get the extra 4 days, you can combine that, well, not necessarily combine, but you can utilize a weekend to play it. I think if that's something, if you're like really into it, then that would be worth it. But I think the difference is I'm on the more casual side, where it's like, I think I can get by with the standard. And then if the battle pass has some nice cosmetics, maybe I can buy that separately. But I guess, it is the kind of the vibe check of, is the $30, well, let's say $20, just because we'll say the battle pass is $10. Is $20 enough for early access? And I think that's up to the individual itself. But I think this conversation kind of retextualized it for me anyways. Like, I'm not putting words in anyone else's mouth, where I think I might try to do the standard, but Matt, video games in Canada, as we said before, really expensive. So again, that's going to be kind of rough. But yeah, Matt, I think again, I had fun with the beta. But one question for you, Matt. How are your key bindings? Did you have to remap some keys when you played through Diablo 4?
Yeah, I ended up rebinding a lot of my keys. I switched my main 4 skills to ASDF because that's just what I'm used to. I tried to rebind force move to mouse wheel down, but there's a bug right now where you can bind mouse wheel down to force move, but using it doesn't actually do anything.
Oh, that's disappointing.
Just really, really disappointing. I mean, I put my potions on my mouse buttons.
Hey, same,
which is just
same.
Which is just really useful. But yeah, I think those are most the major keybinds I did. I mean, I moved around the character sheets and stuff, but yeah. I gotta set it up how I had D3 set up, so I can be the most comfortable.
No, fair enough, Matt. Fair enough. I was kind of the same way as well. But yeah, Matt, overall, real positive for the beta. I am really looking forward to getting my hands on it in June and just leveling up. I don't know about you, Matt, but since the beta was a limited time and I kind of wanted to experience as much as I could, I kind of skipped through all the dialogue, skipped through all the story with the intention of, I'll actually sit down with this and kind of experience what lore it has to offer when the game launches. But yeah, I think during my time here it was skip, and on to trying to level to level 20 and ultimately 25. So did you, I guess, partake in a lot of lore, or were you a skippy boy like me?
I actually had the opposite thought process of you, where I want to get this story out of the way now so that I can speed through it once the real game is out, so I can get to even more new stuff quicker.
Fair enough, man. That's actually also a good point. But yeah, D4 coming in June. You can pre-order now if you like pre-ordering, I guess. But yeah, man, any closing thoughts on the last beta weekend of Diablo 4?
I honestly, my biggest hope is that Druid is improved for our retail. I really hope that this is just an early, a very, very old build that they're using. Right. But yeah, that's about it for me.
I hope you're able to change your hair. Also, after you select it. And Matt, final question. Overwatch has the One Punch Man collab. Matt, what anime do you want to have collab with Diablo 4? And what would make you buy the collab battle pass?
Man, Jared, to be honest, while we're on that Overwatch thing, I was really tempted to jump back in just to try to get some of those skins, but
Yeah.
for Diablo 4, I'm not really sure. I think I wouldn't want it to be something obvious where they normally interact with demons. I'd want it to be, I don't know, something dumb like Zombieland Saga, where it's just so out of
Okay.
like not really connected, but zombies are monsters, so maybe you can have
Yeah.
idols in the game.
Man, Matt, I'm really curious to see what direction Diablo 4 goes with the battle pass, just because, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I'm tainted. My battle pass point of reference is Fortnite
Mm-hmm.
for the longest time, and I'm used to them having, collab skins included, where I really want to know what Blizzard is thinking of the direction with the battle pass.
Mm-hmm.
And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, I admit it, I kind of rolled my eyes and groaned when when I was checking out the special edition contents, and I did see the battle pass and thought, of course, Diablo Immortal is a thing that made money. We'll probably see, some design choices there get to be implemented into D4.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I do see a battle pass, I'm always curious to see how, predatory it might be, how demanding it might be for you to actually level it up. Because I hate to admit it, but the latest Fortnite season, Chapter 4, Season 2,
Mm-hmm.
it's been 2 weeks and 2 days right now, and I'm currently at level 90 just because I've been playing the Save the World portion a lot more now, just because I have a friend also playing it. And I think it's, pretty doable within a season. For the last few seasons, I've been able to get 200 to level 200 with some time to spare after. But again, Matt, it would be really hard to introduce another kind of game that has a battle pass commitment into my schedule. And for the most part, if the cosmetics aren't actually that engaging, I might not be that tempted to actually go through with it. But I am curious to see how their progression works and how
Mm-hmm.
demanding it is, just because I think it's a common thought, or a common kind of outlook at battle passes right now, just how over them people can be. And while I understand the notion of you can pay a fraction of the price to get a variety of different cosmetics and unlockables, at the same time, it is the live service aspect of, I don't want this game to feel like a chore. And unfortunately, when you introduce battle pass assets, that's kind of making it feel like a chore. But that's kind of where I stand right now. Of That's where I'm being or just cautious towards Diablo 4. But other than that, Matt, can't wait to run some rifts with the pals and get some sweet legendary items. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think ever since I saw the battle pass inclusion, that's what's been in the back of my mind. But I guess we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a long-winded way for me to say I hope the collab with Demon Slayer at some point.
Oh, that'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good. That makes a lot of sense.
So Matt,
Mm-hmm.
while we're on the topic of looting games,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what got into me this week, but in addition to playing the Diablo 4 beta, I saw that the Borderlands Ultimate Edition was on sale this
Mm-hmm.
week, just because there are a bunch of spring sales going on right now.
Uh-huh.
And Matt,
Mm-hmm.
I hate to admit it, but I was one of those people who bought the Borderlands Ultimate Edition or one of the super editions at launch, just because I think if you're to go through our Saturday morning arcade archives and different written pieces when I used to actually still write,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I have a well documented love of the Borderlands franchise, for the most part.
Yeah.
Mostly Borderlands 1 and 2. I think those two co op experiences with you and Julian, are some really defining video game memories to me. And I think it's just a game that I played solo dolo a lot, just as much as well. And I really love the gunplay in the games, and just the whole looting aspect is something that really does give me that dopamine rush, when it counts. So
Hmm.
when I was actually looking at the Ultimate Edition being on sale, I realized, oh, they released a second season's pass. I got the itch. I purchased the second season's pass since that was on sale as well, and decided to jump back into Borderlands 3 just because, Matt,
Hmm.
I have to admit that's how they got me. I bought the Super Edition at launch during Borderlands 3, did not touch any of the season 1 content, and kind of let it lie until I rebooted it back now. And I figured, okay, I have all the season 1 content and all the season 2 content at my disposal. I can finally get around to leveling my character to max level, which is 72.
Hmm.
Matt,
Hmm.
for someone with so much more content to explore,
Uh-huh.
would this surprise you that I spent 2 hours farming the same boss over and over again to get 22 levels so I can get max level?
0%, Jared. Knowing you, 0%.
And I don't know what it was, Matt, mostly just because with the Borderlands games in general, I think that, or I guess with looting games in general, I have that feeling of if I'm not at max level to get at least start getting end game level gear, then I honestly don't see the point in, going through the game, just going through all these not max level items to ultimately have to refarm them, if that kind of makes
Hmm.
sense.
Hmm.
So I thought, okay, I'm just gonna get to max level, get a bill or get enough skill points just so I can start tackling all of the DLC content. And if something drops, at least it has the potential to be something that I hold on to, as opposed to, okay, this cool item dropped, but too bad it's like level 63, meaning I have to kind of chance it again and come back when I'm level 72. But I think now that I'm starting to go through Borderlands 3 all over again, I think a lot of the, I guess, criticisms might not be the proper word, but I think a lot of the instances of why I dropped Borderlands 3, or at least I didn't really sink my teeth as deep as I did with 1 and 2, were that I just didn't like the narrative overall. I didn't like
Hmm.
the, I believe it's the Callisto twins as the main protagonists, just because, Matt,
Hmm.
I understand we live in a, I don't know, time where it is easy to dunk on the notion of a streamer or an influencer or a content creator
Uh-huh.
and have a obnoxious version of that be your antagonist. But just kind of cleaning up some of the side missions that I had open for my current character, which is the gunner class, and kind of be reintroduced to a lot of the obnoxious taunting from the antagonist, where I think you having antagonists be these over the top influencers is kind of low hanging fruit at this point, where I don't think they make good writing, if that kind of makes
Uh-huh.
sense.
Uh-huh.
Um, where I feel like it's that's the obvious route to go, especially now given our current entertainment culture, where I think they just weren't appealing. I don't think they were written that well. And let's be honest, I think coming from Borderlands 2 and how Handsome Jack was really presented as a villain, I think it was really hard to kind of top that performance and that depiction. And it showed. And I think just that lack of a strong villain, and of course, at the time, a weaker end game content really put me off with continuing to Borderlands 3. But there was actually some changes made since I stopped playing, since season 1 was released, and since season 2 was introduced, I think a year or two or a year ago as well,
Hmm.
where there's a lot of smart choices that they found that actually make me excited to kind of go back right now. And I think the biggest change for me is the notion that you no longer have to replay the game at, true Vault Hunter mode, and then kind of increase your badass ranks from there, I believe, because I think that was like the structure of Borderlands 2, where, you finish the single player campaign, or you finish the campaign, you restart it in true Vault Hunter mode, and from there you can add different difficulty tiers. Where coming back to Borderlands 3, one, I was really glad to see a bunch of different written guides saying, hey, you might be coming back to the game. This is what's new. This is what you can do. This is what you can work towards. And I really appreciated a lot of those guides. But I think with the concept of what they call mayhem levels, where you can go into the menu at any time and increase your mayhem level from 1 to 11. And each time, you increase a level, it of course adds to the difficulty of the game, whether it be stronger enemies, they hit harder, the typical damage scaling things as well. But there are also different modifiers that can be added to the game as well, depending on how many mayhem levels you activate. For example, you can have a modifier, like an easy modifier, like, loot explosion. Each enemy has a 10% chance to explode into more drops than usual. Likewise, as you go on, there could be medium ones and hard ones, such as, when you kill an enemy, they have a chance to drop a healing orb that another enemy can pick up, or one enemy will have a healing drone that follows them the whole time. If you kill the enemy but not the drone, that drone goes somewhere else. Or, enemies are now resistant to this type of element, and stuff like that. So I think that really adds to kind of the end game of, okay, I don't have to replay through true Vault Hunter mode, just because when you enable a mayhem level, both normal mode and true Vault Hunter mode are exactly the same. Difficulty wise, I think the only difference is more badass enemies spawn in true Vault Hunter mode, but other than that, there's no difference. So that immediately kind of made me eager just to jump in and explore all the DLC once I was max level, just because I knew I didn't have to sit through the single player campaign once again to kind of get to all this content. And I think another thing that a lot of the guides I read pointed out was that Borderlands 3 has a lot more build diversity now, where, a lot of weapons can be viable late game or end game, and even kind of take you through, depending on the role, to a lot more of the harder end game content, which are, like the takedown or takeovers or takedowns or whatever their mini raid dungeons are, and all the big, raid, quote unquote raid bosses that they have now, which is also kind of cool, because I think one of the big reasons that I dropped Borderlands 2 ultimately when I started climbing up those badass ranks was that the slag elemental, I'm not sure if you remember that, Matt, from Borderlands 2, that became crucial in endgame Borderlands 2, because you had to inflict slag from a weapon just so an enemy would be more receptive to damage and then switch to your other weapon. So that kind of made your build diversity like pretty low, and then it really was revolved around having good slag weapons in addition to other weapons and being able to switch the two. But with here, from what I saw, a lot of different builds are viable, which in turn means a lot of different weapons are viable as well. And I think that's what makes me excited to really explore the game now, knowing that practically anything that can drop could be viable in some way to my experiencing the game. So that's something I'm really looking forward to really sinking my teeth in with Borderlands 3, because it does seem like it's a lot more open than Borderlands 2 was. And I have all this DLC content to kind of go through as well. But yeah, I think that's a long-winded way of me saying, Matt, I'm going to get to this DLC eventually, but I know Borderlands 3 wasn't something that you dabbled into, but as someone who did play their fair share of 1 and 2, is 3 something that you would ever consider jumping into, or do you think that kind of, like the Borderlands games in general, have, kind of passed you by at this point?
See, I think the issue for me, in particular for 3, was that I couldn't find a class that I liked.
Right.
Because I played through with, I believe, everybody except for the Siren in this game. or in Borderlands 3, and
Yeah.
I don't know, they just never clicked with me. And when I went to go like start the siren, I just didn't didn't want to go through that early early to mid game of Borderlands again. And I don't know,
Yeah.
it just never, none of the classes ever clicked with me. Is it still only 4 classes, or are there more now?
Yeah. So that was kind of the wild part about, which also kind of put me off when my initial like falling off of Borderlands 3 is when they announced the season 1 deal, the 4 pieces of season 1 DLC. It was all kind of story content, and there would be the confirmed that no new classes would be added to Borderlands 3. And we did see an additional skill tree, like a fourth skill tree be added with season
Mm-hmm.
pass 2. But from what I read as well, it's not necessarily needed. There are a lot of like viable endgame builds that can be done just with the core game without any of the DLC. But yeah, Matt, as someone who loved, how Gage played the
Mm-hmm.
Necromancer in Borderlands 2, not having kind of that equivalent. I know you have, I think Flack was like the
Yeah, yeah.
Beastmaster here, but I think I liked Gage's playstyle with her Anarchy build and not really having something similar to the game really, or knowing that it would be coming kind of like put me off, if, kind of continuing as
Mm-hmm.
well. But yeah, I think that is something that I did notice as well. And that was one of my kind of issues with early Borderlands 3 was not really finding a class that really clicked with me. But I think now that I am, level 72 with the gunner. I think I am more receptive to going back and trying the different classes just because I can just go to a tried and true farming
Uh-huh.
spot and then put in a podcast, and that's what I'll do then. But yeah, I think I'm just at a good spot where I just want to experience the chaos that the Borderlands games can offer.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm, I know I'm completely done with like the base narrative, at least for my gunner class. I think that will help me kind of enjoy what else has been added to the game. Just because, yeah, I think it was kind of jarring at first rebooting up Borderlands 3 and then having all this content now available, just like a bunch of different dialogue cues being spat
Uh-huh.
at me. So, yeah, maybe this will be something that I'll. Plus, it's just something light, something I don't really have to invest in. But maybe I'll check in next week if I progress in any of the DLC and just do a quick check-in of how that's kind of going and if they're actually fun pieces of DLC or any good gear has dropped. But yeah, I'm really kind of excited where this is just I have a few minutes of downtime. Maybe I can do a few missions here or there and, just get me into that mood of looting.
Jaren, is Gearbox still around or no?
Yeah, I think they're part of the Embracer group now. They did,
Oh, okay.
I think the latest Borderlands adjacent project that they released was the Tiny Tina's Wonderland
Oh,
or
right. Yeah, right,
Wonderlands.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Mm-hmm.
D&D spin-off, which I thought was like pretty good. I think the DLC had some issues as well. But I think another thing that really surprised me about, coming back to Borderlands 3 was I know that they had some holiday, event centric
Mm-hmm.
events where it was, hey, here's the Halloween event or here's, like a Christmas event, here's a Valentine's event. I do like how you can just toggle those on and off
Oh, that's
like
really
in the
good.
menus
Actually,
now.
that's really good.
Just because I'm not sure how much is being, done for Borderlands 3. I assume not that much considering they have like Wonderlands out, and I'm not sure if they're doing
Mm-hmm.
content on that or they're potentially working on a Borderlands 4. But yeah, to see, I think this also kind of tripped me out, Matt, just because kind of coming as we touched upon during the Diablo 4 topic, that for all intents and purposes, Borderlands 3 should be a live service game. And, like,
Uh-huh.
it has all the, quote unquote trappings for a live service game. And it kind of is wild to me that it isn't. And just seeing that event toggle in like the menu or whatever made me realize that Borderlands, it's so weird where I'm kind of conditioned to expect like live service games now, and now and just jumping back into Borderlands 3 and seeing that, oh, this is just, its own standalone thing. I can do co-op if I want, but like, yeah, there's no actual live service elements to it. And it feels not that, like, I don't know why that is, but maybe this is how twisted my brain is right now, but it feels kind of dated in a way where, I don't know, Matt. I don't know if that what I'm saying makes sense, but it's kind of tripping me out that I'm so used to all these live service aspects, and just playing a game that should be a live service game but isn't is kind of wild to me.
Jaren, that's gonna be Borderlands 4, man. They're gonna call it Borderlands forever, and it'll be live service.
Matt, it kind of disgusts me where now that you put that in the open, I literally wouldn't be surprised if Borderlands 4 was called Borderlands Forever and was a live service game. Man. And I think that in itself, I'm curious how they would tackle, just because I feel like Borderlands in itself has been, for 5 games now, including the pre-sequel and including Wonderlands now, it's a specific type of looting game where I wonder if the live service aspect would make it better or worse, and if it would actually take away to what the charm of the Borderlands games, have been since release. But yeah, Matt, do you have any want to play Tales from the Borderlands 2, or are you just like, whatever?
I always want to play Tales from the Borderlands. Jaren, I wish I finished that first one.
Oh, you haven't played the first one?
I never finished the first one. I feel like I should. I got to, I think, like the 3rd chapter or episode or whatever, and then I never like continued it from there. But I feel like I should, because I was.
Oh, that's actually pretty surprising.
Yeah, I was actually pretty into the first 2 episodes, so I'm actually surprised that I never continued them. I honestly think that it probably came out when another big game came out, and I ended up just dropping it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually really enjoyed Tales from the Borderlands 1. And not only that, I thought I was actually... Okay, man, I guess I'm going back to... Now that it's all coming back to me, another reason I dropped... Like, I kind of fell off Borderlands 3 pretty quickly was that a lot of the narrative beats, whether it be, some characters that were introduced from Tales of the Borderlands and some story implications, were kind of like tossed to the side in Borderlands 3, where I think a lot, even some of the notable characters from Tales that appeared in Borderlands 3, their kind of characteristic, or like their motivations kind of were 180 from what we saw in the game, which was also really kind of disappointing to see. But I do recommend finishing Tales from the Borderlands, at least the first one, just because I think narratively, I think it's the best thing in the Borderlands universe. And now that a sequel, or not a sequel, but like a second Tales from the Borderlands was released, and from what I saw, I don't think it had the same fanfare as the first one did. Plus, I don't think it was made by, the same team, Telltale team. Not that like they necessarily exist anymore, but I only have like high, praise for the first Tales from the Borderlands, and I do recommend you finishing it, just because it does incorporate that handsome Jack character and is still well written there. And yeah, I'm curious to see to kind of dig deep to see if Tales from the Borderlands 2 is worth playing. But yeah, I don't think it was received as well as the first one, but I do recommend the first one if you do have the chance to play it.
Yeah, but I think I probably will.
Yeah, Matt, love the Borderlands franchise. Fell off for a bit, but I think now's a good time for me to go back to Borderlands 3, which I am, now that I'm done my grinding. And that there's just something so, I don't know, like me throwing on a podcast and then going to this one area, killing an enemy, seeing if the item I want drops. If it doesn't, quit out to the main menu, reload that area, kill the same enemy. Like, I like that loop, Matt. I think this is one of the perfect podcast games for me. And I'm kind of excited to kind of have that in between some DLC content that I need to explore, especially since I think one of them has Gage from Borderlands 2 Again,
Nice.
my favorite character from it, as one of the central characters guiding you through it. So, yeah, it's something I'll check in here and there within the next few weeks as well. But yeah, that's Borderlands 3 still out there, and hopefully more digestible than it was at launch. Matt, you know me. We're best friends. You know I'm like 12 years old. And I wanted to say, Matt, that was a long episode, or that was a beefy episode of Lootin and Tootin, but I don't think we actually talked about Tootin, so I don't know. That's how my brain works, Matt. I am a 5-year-old. I somehow digressed 7 years, but we talked about looting in Diablo. I talked about looting in Borderlands, and I think that's enough for the mistake zone this week. Matt, I want to thank you as always for joining me.
Yo.
I want to thank necromancers and macromancers, and I want to thank all our friends for also joining us as well. But yeah, Matt, who knows what we'll find and loot for next week, but until then, Matt, take it away.
This has been the Mistake Zone, and we're all out of good druid skills.
But not Borderlands 3 skulls, Matt. That 4th skull tree. Come back to us, Matt. Come back.